Dr. Jessica Ash here, and I'm very honored to be accompanied by two esteemed doctors, and we're going to discuss the idea of revitalization of indigenous languages, cultures, and knowledges. It is these local knowledges that are so valuable in creating a country. And the one-word phrase for that would be decolonization. So without further ado, I would like to first welcome Dr. Colonel Tarun Kumar with us today. Welcome, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Dr. Jessica. It is a pleasure to be on your show.
And I'll let everybody give a larger introduction, but I'm going to ask Dr. Hoque to be with us. And so welcome, Dr. Hoque, as well.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to meet you all of the talent guys here.
Welcome. So Dr. Kumar, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how it relates to the topic?
Well, Dr. Jessica, I come with about 3 decades of Army experience, having fought terrorists, insurgents, been traveling across the length of globe, been to various UN peacekeeping missions. Having seen what the world is going through, I would only say that the world is looking for hope, is looking for a better time. Unfortunately, greed and our lust for money makes us most of the things go in a different direction. Most of the miseries of the world are primarily because of human greed and inability to understand that we all came empty-handed and we shall be leaving empty-handed. None of us is going to carry even a single penny with us. Any legacy that we are going to leave for our coming generations is going to be the name, the fame, and the kind of learnings that we leave for the people and the children. As regards our interest in the colonization and decolonization, suffice to say that India suffered the maximum, and in spite of being a force to reckon with in the 1600th century, they were reduced to nothing. At times, 400 years back, when India was contributing to almost 27% of world GDP, we were reduced to less than 4% by the time Britishers left us. So this is one subject which is very close to every nationalist and every human being whose race, whose people have suffered at the hands of colonial power. And I think it's not about emotions, it's more about how you have survived and what the way forward is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And can you tell me a little bit about this organization, CEPRI Welfare, and what you do for them?
Well, CEPRI is a foundation. Basically, it is a center for environment. It is almost everything that we are looking in our sphere of activity, be it environment, be it sustainable development, be it alleviation of from the clutches of poverty. It is an amalgamation of like-minded people who have come together on an international forum. At that level, we are addressing issues so that it is not only in our own country but globally, because globally we are suffering. And today we are a global world and a global economy. So we are all touched by each other. Hence, if somebody is thinking that he's going to survive individually, he is living in a fool's paradise. We are very much connected to each other. And if we have to rise, let's rise together.
Yes, the concept of co-rising, that if one country rises and the others fall, we all fail, is very important to me, that we all have to rise together. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
Okay, so now for Dr. Hoque to introduce himself. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, thank you so much for giving the floor and chance to say about myself. Basically, I'm a lawyer about the Supreme Court and human rights activist as well. and I have been working as a social activist for last 14 years. And I'm the first pro bono lawyer of Bangladesh, and I also organized the first pro bono conference in Bangladesh with the Honorable Chief Justice of Bangladesh and other judges as well. So I'm trying to work and for ensure the vulnerable people's rights and justice. Especially, I giving the legal services to the litigant people, poor litigant people as well. And I'm also working to ensure the education's right as well, which is the very much relevant to these topics because we are going to discuss about the uh, uh, knowledge, education, and culture for the indigenous peoples of all our countries. So uh, while we working as a pro bono lawyer or pro bono activist, then we have been uh, trying to promote our knowledge, promote our expertise, promote our uh, professionalism to ensure the justice, to getting the justice for the litigant people as well. So, so there have no connection to taking the much more fees or was the time to getting the justice as well. So we have a concern to getting the uh, logical fees or without any fees and getting the justice to in the due time or the proper time or in certain time, which is very much relevant to our judicial systems because there have been no uh, there have a little bit possibility to get the justice in due time. I mean, as per law. So this is one kind of harassment for the litigant people. Uh, uh, because if they get more time to getting the justice, so just lots of the litigant people maybe they are uh, deprived from getting the justice and they are also frustrated. So we are trying to support them without any fees and most in the frame of the judicial time frame exactly that. So uh, uh, actually this is myself actually. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
yes, I do know a little bit about your organization. Uh, Access to Human Rights International does a tremendous job in acknowledging the efforts of local people in securing human rights and solving human rights issues. Would you like to say anything more about that organization?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would like to share my experience with all of you because Access to Human Rights International, it's, I can say, because on the basis of my activities, of the activities of our Access to Human Rights organizations, I can uh, say to all of you with my full confidence that this organization uh, truly working to ensure the justice, peace, and social development, social change as well. And the we have been working to the education rights for the street people and health to promote the health services to the vulnerable people, to the rural people as well. But most important things, we have been started first in our country to work to prevent violence, rape, and sexual harassment, unified institutional and community counseling. So this is the new thought for our country, especially for Bangladesh, because lots of the national, international, government, non-government organizations, NGOs have been involved in working to reduce the rape, reduce the gender violence, reduce the sexual harassment as well. But for the we have been seeing for the last 15 years, this position has never been changed because we have been seeing the violence, rape, sexual has been day by day increasing, not decreasing and not stop and not uh, still the same positions. So what the happening for their for taking these types of situations steps? So, but on the practically, we have been served and we have been collect data from different types of institute, different types of schools, college. and community as well. And we have been seen that the procedure was there have been little bit wrong procedure to implement when they are trying to stop and trying to reduce this problem. But we are able to identify and able to prove that if we are going to all institute like education institute, like professional institute, business institute, and other corporate institute as well, yeah, and community. And if we are able to counseling to the institute, counseling to the community, how can we prevent the violence? How can we prevent the rape and sexual harassment? What is the duty of the community people? What is the duty of the institutional authority, institutional employee, institutional transport relevant people, and community people? Then we can hope we will be success to prevent the rape and sexual harassment and violence as well. And I would like it's my pleasure to share with you that we are working for that practically, and hopefully we will be success as well. Thank you so much.
I want to thank you both for your efforts with your organizations to increase awareness of these human rights violations and to help to bring an end to them. And I think that global mobility and Mindset News can play a role in any way that you like. If my organizations can help you, it would be an honor.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, so I want to get back to the topic. I thought that Dr. Kumar did a great introduction to to some of the issues involved with the first part, which was colonization and the inherent destruction of indigenous knowledges and languages and cultures, the degradation. I can say from a Western point of view, I see the degradation of indigenous knowledges and languages and cultures. And that frustrates me so much every time somebody wants to put the United States or my knowledge ahead of theirs. I immediately want to exit the conversation. Like, no, our culture is in no way better, especially regarding your land and your context. Your culture should be number one. And anytime I engage in any type of collaboration, I say, okay, so I can give English away. I can do that all day long. But I want you to know that English is not more important than your languages, plural. It has become the de facto world business language for many, many reasons in many cultures. And in fact, it's acting as a decolonizer in some places, but that's a different topic. I just want to say that the languages in Bangladesh and in India and the cultures and the knowledges are far more important than anything I know. So that's like a disclaimer for myself. Okay, so let's go back to, go ahead, Dr. Kumar.
No, what you said, Dr. Jessica, was absolutely right. Language is a great thread of connectivity between cultures and people from various generations. Unfortunately, that is the first thing most of the colonizers they target, because once you capture the minds, then rest is a cakewalk.
Yes, unfortunately.
So, yes, so obviously you would like to have your own stooges in the place. If people they speak their own languages, then that kind of hold over the community is missing. And that is why every colonizer they tried to influence the locals by enforcing their own language and providing certain privileges to people who could imbibe these changes in their culture. And by doing so, they were able to create fissures, and hence they could beat the fabric of that culture.
Yes. I will take a break right here to show you this comment from Noor Ahmed. Access to Human Rights International, the greatest organization for social activities with very unique concept. connect with direct vulnerable people to prevent the society. So Nuramed, thank you. And that I think that's for Dr. Hoque.
Yes.
Okay, so Dr. Hoque, we've heard a bit about some of the effects of colonization in India. Can you tell us more about the problems in Bangladesh?
Yes. Thank you so much. It's a very important questions for regarding our history, because after Second World War, India is getting independence or freedom, you can say, from the British colonialism. So Bangladesh was a part of the Greater India as well. After first of all the Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, all was under of the British colonialism. But fight the Greater India getting the independence from the British government of British colonialism, then uh, after that we have been divided to the two countries on the issues of the nationalism as well. So India and Pakistan as well. As after that, in 1971, we got the independence from the Pakistan as well on the main basis of the uh, language. Language is very much important. Mr. Kumar has explained so wonderfully, because on the only we are one nations of the world who fight for language, who fight for language, and that we have a lot of materials, the language matters and language fighter as well. So from our voice of our independence on regarding 1971, we had these issues that has been raised from on the basis of language barrier as well, because in the east, we have a two part in the whole Pakistan, the West Pakistan and East Pakistan. Bangladesh was the East Pakistan. So our language was Bengali, and still we have been Bengali speaking people. But West Pakistan was the Urdu speaking people. They trying to impose the Urdu speaking on the Bengali peoples as well. So we are fighting to getting the language rights, to establish the language rights for our East Pakistan, I mean for Bangladesh. So on the basis of the language issues, we have gotten the independence in 1971. Now we are the independent country in the world. So this is the actually this is the uh, what I'll say is what it's the imagine, actually it's imagine. So I know there have, yeah, there have another country in the world who got the independence on the issues of the language as well. So this is what the bright indigenous changes on the basis of the language barrier and language issues. Uh, I think you get the message from about the language issues right away.
I don't know if I'm getting a call or if someone else is. I don't think it's on mine.
But it's calling. I'm here.
Me neither.
I'm so sorry.
I muted myself and I didn't hear
I'm
it.
getting also tuned. I'm getting also tuned, but I'm not sure why.
Let me try to mute one of you guys to see who's getting the. Okay, it's Dr. Hoque that's getting the phone call. By now, I'm used to dealing with these technological glitches. In fact, sometimes I get. Okay, sometimes I get kicked out of my own classroom and I just laugh. I come back to the classroom and the students are still engaged in their work and I'm like, good, you're independent learners. And in the past, I think that we had less sensitivity for those problems, but today we're all in the same boat. So we won't complain about technology. We'll just work with it. Okay, so going back to colonization and in the linguistic aspect of it, Dr. Hoque was talking about for Bengali. And I'll insert a statement here that my representative from Pakistan now lives in Australia. And due to that time zone chain difference, that's why this is a two-part series. So I have encouraged those people who are still asleep to listen to what you guys gentlemen have to say. And then I'll say the same for you tomorrow sometime. If you can listen to what they have to say, maybe sometime we can. I agree with you, Dr. Hoque. I would love to do a conference in Bangladesh, and we'll discuss that later. So, Dr. Kumar, you were talking about the colonizers do and how they want their own men or women in their spots, and language is a big part of it. What has India, I know that India has made great strides in the last 50 years. Can you go more into the great strides that India has made in decolonization or revitalization of local knowledges?
Okay. Firstly, Dr. Jessica, what happened is, as I brought out earlier, that the colonization to decolonization process didn't happen overnight.
No.
Firstly, there was First World War. People, those which were being colonized, they understood that they were the ones. If I have to put some facts and figures to you, I would say that about 6 million Indian soldiers participated in the First World War as part of British troops and bought laurels. A couple of them won Victoria Cross also, which was the highest British military honor. And similarly, India as a country provided about 100 million pounds as a contribution from India. And that, when I'm talking of India, India as a colony provided this kind of funding to support British war or British participation in that war. The First World War ended in a couple of years. The Second World War happened. And by the time Second World War ended, most of these big countries, which were the colonial superpowers, for them maintaining such a humongous amount of strength so far off from their country, led to a lot of burden on their exchequer, because they had already drained out these countries. And as I brought it out earlier to you, that a country which was, as a nation, which was producing 27% of the world GDP in the 16th century, they just nosedived, and they ended up providing less than 4% of the world GDP when they were decolonized. Or I would say, we were granted, or we took this independence from them. So it was somewhere around 1942 when the Britishers decided that they would be considering independence to us, because maintaining India in the current state was a big drain on their finances. And as I had brought out earlier to you, that unfortunately, uh, most of the decisions, even in today's world and all along the human evolution, they were based on economics of factors. So economies, they decided that how a particular thing will pan out. In the instant case, it took close to about 5 years when India was given the independence, and it was not without a price. Now, you were talking about the language part. I will just say a couple of things. That when India gained independence, Pakistan was created. So, how do you rule when you don't have a say in the matter of things? As an instrument of disruption, this was the tactics which the Britishers used. What they did was that they started a particular methodology which was later on identified as divide and rule. Dr. Jessica, when I mentioned to you that before 1857, the East India Company used to rule, and they used to take the shots, which were basically, they were on the leagues of mercenary, and they used to do things because they had the government sanction, and they were like a stockbroker. So a couple of entities, they came together, they formed a coalition under the government tutelage, and they ended up having an enterprise called East India Company, which had the umbrella of the government, and government was not interfering because they were getting revenues out of it. However, 1857, when the first war of mutiny took place, you would be surprised to see that there were two major communities in India, Hindus and Muslims. They both fought shoulder to shoulder, and it was actually a big pain in their backside for Britishers, and then must have struck their conscience somewhere that they must create a fissure in these two communities. If they can separate these two strengths apart, if they can divide this particular strength, they would have a cakewalk in this country. And that is there, or that is where they started sowing the seeds of mistrust by various methodologies which we can discuss, but I think that is beyond the scope. But they were, and I would say that any amount of mistrust can only happen when there are gullible people who are willing to accept those things. And it what it led to, by the time it was India's independence that was being talked about, people were, it was, I think, one of the worst massacres which happened on the eve of 1947, when two countries emerged, and they emerged purely on the basis of the majority which was there. So the Hindu majority became India, although India is a secular country, so we don't proclaim ourselves to be as a Hindu nation.
Right.
And a Muslim majority came as Pakistan. And as Dr. Huck mentioned, so there was a majority Bengali Muslims, which came as the West Pakistan was the Urdu speaking or the Punjabi speaking, and the East Pakistan was the Bengali speaking. And this particular thing from 1947 to 1971 remained till again India intervened and liberated Bangladesh. So India had a major role to play in the liberation of or creation of Bangladesh, which otherwise would have remained as the integral part of East and West Pakistan. Suffice to say that most of the communities across the world, if even if you go to the African continent, you will see that this is how the seeds of disruptions have been sowed by our European counterparts, who were the major colonizers from the time the Industrial Revolution took place. So wherever they went, they had certain agendas and certain methodologies which they employed, and they targeted the unsuspecting local population. And I would say that hats off to them. Today we are talking about it because one has studied their methodologies, but at that particular point in time, they were pretty successful and effective, and they were able to achieve their goal, and they could disrupt the social fabric on the lines of language, caste, ethnicity, racial prejudices, and apartheid was one such thing which was so prevalent that today we know Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi as the proponents of these two causes. So the Indian independence happened out of the non-violence which was propagated by Mahatma Gandhi, and Britishers were forced because nobody was. It was not a fight. It was not a battle. It was a battle of wits. But yes, it was not a armed battle which led to that, and they were ultimately forced to leave this country. And before leaving, most of the people say that they offered you a lot of things, but everything that they offered the country was for their own ulterior motive. Thereafter, we had to use it to put it into our own methodology and into our own economy. Most of the things were suiting their interest. They were never ever created or constructed to suit the Indian interests. They were always made and created to suit their nation's interest.
It was
So,
manipulation.
yeah, it was more of a manipulation, and then we had to work our way around. And if somebody says that roads, railways, transportation, all these things, you benefited out of it, so then I would say that every country in this world should have been colonized by somebody. But no, there are countries who have never been colonized and they are still having the benefits of road transports, railways, steamers, everything. So it is not a prerequisite for anybody to be a colony to get these facilities. It was purely out of the economic sense, the kind of material they wanted to take out of this country, they could only do, and they were way ahead by the time Industrial Revolution was already on its final stages in the European continent. They were looking for new markets. They were looking for new areas from where they could get the raw material because they had nothing. Their machines were producing much more than what hands could produce.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack in everything you said, Dr. Kumar. If I were to focus on one thing that could be optimistic moving forward, it's that you were talking about how the Hindus and the Muslims worked so closely together. I think it was during World War One. Am I correct there?
No, yes, no, it was right up till the World War II. They have fought shoulder to shoulder.
Yes.
And that is the moral fabric they wanted to disrupt.
But this sticking together, this togetherness, it's very similar to the togetherness or the co-rising that the three of us are talking about today. And if you stick together, then you repel any
All the negative forces.
Yes, thank you for saying that. And so, Dr. Hoque, what kind of thoughts come to your mind from what Dr. Kumar was saying? Oh, just a minute. I can unmute you. Sorry. You have to unmute yourself. I have unmuted you.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kumar. He explained elaborately and very much clearly, because we have been seen in the uh, period of 1971 in the liberation war of Bangladesh, Hindu and Muslims fight against the West Pakistan. Uh, I mentioned it shoulder to shoulder, and yes, and just like if we are, but that time we have been seeing this scenarios. We have two bodies, but we have one heart, and we are fighting for getting the independence and the and liberation of the Bangladesh. So even that time, we have been seeing Hindus and Muslims living in a room and eating in the same dining, and their worship rooms as well. The Muslims use their worship rooms as well. So this is the uh, cultural variation. This is the religious uh, uh, cooperations and religious respects as well. So this is actually imagine I have been mentioned again also the time. So these what is the principles of the decolonizations? We have been seen that period that's happened, and we have been faced now as well. After getting our liberation, our economic and our structure of our country have been ruined, but now we are the stand on the stable economy, and we are able to establish the uh, our the industrializations, our economical, our agricultural, every sectors. This is changes. This is the because the capacity, resilience, and strength, all are the elements of the decolonization. So we have been used these types of. Now we are use our strength, use our capacity, and we build our capacity. So because this is the situations of the decolonizations. But alternatively, we have been seen new colonialism. Mr. Kumar also mentioned it. All multinational and international companies and industrial persons invest and foreign invest. All are here and all are treat as a new colonialism. There have been two types of benefits, demerits and merits as well. Uh, we have been seen in the period of the new colonialism. So when we have been seeing the merit of the new colonialism, we have been seeing the economical development, economical strength, and the national economical support as well. So uh, that's why our different government support to the new colonialism. But ultimately, our small business or small industrialization of the local industrialized and local business is hampered for the new colonialism. So we have been seen, if we discuss in the two types and to take two parts, and we have been seeing the different types of scenario like merits and demerits, and so but which will be more acceptable for our nations, for our indigenous peoples. That should be accepted by the government, by the community, by the state, or by the by other countries. So this is the questions of the ensure the local benefits and the national economical support and the local small businessmen or small industrialist persons as well. So we didn't deny them because they are also part of the nation. They are the main indigenous people. So we have duty to establish the systems, to regulation the systems, to emphasize the systems as well. So if we are able to establish the system to ensure the indigenous people's rights and raise the new colonialism, then we can accept it for our national economical growth, national benefits, as well as our indigenous people's benefits as well. So there have lot of chance to work and research about this matter. We should also uh, skill, and we should also measurement the skills which will be benefited, which will be profitable for all. Thank
Uh,
you.
yes, that's a lot of work to be done, and it's not an instantaneous fix either. I am,
Exactly.
yeah, I am familiar with CKH Network. Coach Kamal Hassan has initiated a huge employability skills training program in an attempt to prevent more brain drain from Bangladesh. And I've worked with him a bit to help make sure that the people in Bangladesh are employable, that they know how the world works in terms of business, so that the businesses, as they rise in Bangladesh, they are on par with the other businesses and they can all work together.
Yes.
So that's one other aspect of moving forward. And I do want to hear from Dr. Kumar, but there's one other thought that just keeps lingering in my head. And when you were talking about how 6 million Indians lost their lives in the war, and the World War I, and that 100 million pounds was spent from India, I thought, what a waste! What a waste for India. And then the immediate thought that came after that was, you can't decolonize. Like, you can't. They're now together. They are one entity. You can't just go back to the way India was with a 27% world GDP, because now you have Hindus and Muslims who are also British, and so in decoupling, or in decolonizing, you have to respect now the British nature of people in India. You know, can that be said? I mean, is there, in some sense, that people from India have a feeling of Britishness, or is that just resentment and anger?
Dr. Jessica, when something is given to you as a privilege, now when I'm talking about this privilege, it was emanating from the language, and with the language, they were able to pollute the minds of people by saying that if you are siding with us, then you will be eligible for certain privileges. And hence, people, those who were looking for some gratification and other things, they ended up on that side and they enjoyed those privileges and they had a good life. The human misery starts when we start comparing apples with oranges. So, Britishers were able to target this particular facet of human existence, I would say, where you target the weak spots of a human nature, and thereafter you leave the rest to be done by the society. So society got divided into two parts, where one, those who were clamoring for freedom, and the other who were very happy because they were getting everything on the platter just by imbibing the British culture. So when India got independence, there were these two classes which were very much prevalent, and the class of the British influence, I would say, was much stronger, and they called the shots for the first couple of years, probably a decade or so, and they did the things in their own manner. Over a period of time, your inherent nature will emerge, the way we think, the way the community should develop, the way society will progress, and the way India will emerge as a leader in the Indian subcontinent and probably later as a world leader because of their thought process. Now, even when India was going through all this thing in the fight for independence, our great leaders, people of that time, they were again divided into the hotheads and not and the cold people. So the non-violence was accepted as a method of protest. So when you use non-violence as a method of protest, if I refuse to say anything to my oppressor or the person who is trying to incite me, how long will he keep on inciting me? Dr. Jessica, you can understand. If somebody keeps on pushing you, shoving you, and you don't retaliate, people are trying to incite you. They want some kind of a reaction because that reaction in an individual will lead to a different outcome. Unfortunately, most of the communities they fell prey to this kind of mechanizations by the colonial powers. When it came to the leaders at hand that time, they said that we will be protesting, but it would be a non-violent protest. There will be no violence which will be done. They were met with heavy resistance. They were beaten up, they were brutalized, they were kept into the jails. The most inhuman treatment was meted out to them. But the only thing they kept on doing was that they were all shouting slogans of Vande Mataram. That is the my nation comes first. And ultimately, with this kind of a bias towards non-violence, forced the colonial powers to change tracks, and they realized that they are being ineffective in dealing because people were exhibiting a very strong mindset. If
Yes.
you would remember, initially we were talking about that why language was being used. Language was basically a tool to influence the mindset of natives. The moment you lose that control over the local natives and the indigenous people, you must understand that your hold over the people, once it's gone, it's high time you say goodbye. And that is what Britishers did. And the and in any society, in any kind of a scenario, be it in the present context, be it Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, any place, the moment any great personality who is trying to influence his decisions, the moment he realizes that it's not having an effect, it's time to bid goodbye. In the case of Britishers, they gave us exposure to an international language, which happens to be the business language. And in fact, I would not say that Indians, because Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, we are all of the same soil. We are part of that same Indian subcontinent. And for our growth, our voices need to be heard outside. So we embraced whatever we had got and we used it to our advantage, I would say, being smart enough to understand that if we wanted world to hear our views, if we wanted world to hear the kind of progress India was making, if we wanted to showcase India to the world, English language proved to be the game changer. In fact, this language ensured that today there is a high growth of Indian populace in the US, in Canada, in Australia, wherever there is growth, you'll find that people from the Indian subcontinent are there to contribute to that growth. And we are so adaptable. Dr. Jessica, you must accept this. We are very adaptable people, and wherever we go, we mix with that culture well. And when people come to our cultures, if you ever happen to visit to India, you'll find that people, they will accept you with open arms and open hearts. And this is the beauty of our nation. In fact, people are like this. The differences which were brought in this society were the things which were sowed in the minds of people. They were very simple people. They accepted these foreigners with open hearts, with an open intent that let's do business. And slowly and steadily, they started encroaching onto their land, then on into their lives, and then finally they were subjugated for centuries. So India has made progress on that particular extent, and in fact, I would say that all three of us are doing in our own right pretty well, because all these three nations today are independent and independent nations, and they have their own challenges. Bangladesh being the most or the youngest one, so they have to evolve over a period of time before they reach a certain stage of maturity in handling and understanding. But in today's global environment, they are at an advantage because they have seen what other countries have gone through, so they don't have to reinvent the cycle. They don't have to go through the same systematic changes to arrive at the solutions. They can imbibe those things from the environment and try and infuse it into their system. So everything comes with some positives and some negatives. It is for us to accept those positives and leave the negatives out. This is precisely what is happening today. Now, let me talk about the growth of India. In the space and technology, India is doing pretty well. In the IT field, India is doing pretty well. In the artificial intelligence, in fact, if I should not be sounding too bombastic or too self-obsessed as an Indian, but Sundar Pichai, he's an Indian. Same is the case with most of the people, those who are heading most of the top-notch companies across the globe. They are Indian. If they're not Indian, then they would be from my other two counterparts who are part of the Indian subcontinent. Or otherwise, people from these nations would be partly responsible for the growth of these countries in very important positions. So the fire in the belly in the Indian subcontinent is pretty strong, and people, they know that they have a lot of potential and they can deliver the goods. What is required is that people should accept, and unfortunately or fortunately for everybody, we do not have expansionist designs, or India still is perceived as a nation which looks for non-alignment, world peace, and all those things, which are very much internal to their own policies. So I think I see a resurgent India, which is going to be a force to be reckoned with in coming years, and we would be looking at this at coexistent with not only with our neighbors but at the global level, because somehow it was not there in our genes, it was not there in our philosophy. Never ever any of our scriptures, any of our customs, ethos, they talk about these things.
Sorry. What I wanted to say about the ability and of people from India, it's visible all over the world. And in my community, there are thousands of families from India, Muslim, Hindu, and they put their differences aside very easily. But the focus seems to have been on education. And I was in South Korea in 1991 before it was developed, and one of the reasons why I am where I am today was my great respect for the people in South Korea, their work ethic, their focus on education for the future. And you can see, however many years later that is, that South Korea has developed very well. And with India's, and this isn't just like India as a governmental institution, this is the individual families in India who have been lucky enough, but also focused on education and their brilliance. I mean, there's nowhere in this country that someone thinks people from India aren't brilliant. The people from India display their brilliance on every continent. And education is so important. And I see education as a key component of this continual process, that the marginalized need more access to education.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Dr. Hoque, I saw you nodding your head a lot. Maybe you have something to say about what Dr. Kumar was saying. Can you hear me,
Yes, thank you so much. Dr. Kumar delivered his speech nicely and to mention the all sorts is mentioned he mentioned all sorts of the uh, statistics of the indigenous peoples for the indigenous peoples in regarding the decolonizations, especially so but when we work and when we study the decolonizations, we have seen that the different types of character of the decolonizations for the indigenous peoples knowledge about the indigenous people's knowledge. We have been seen there have been especially when we working about the indigenous people's knowledge and how can we grow the high economy, ensure the knowledge for the indigenous peoples, then we have been seeing they're connected activated with uh, some of the spirituality and healings, mankind, and cultural practice, religious practice, and their uh, community systems as well. So this is the for the Indian contingent, especially for the Asian contingent, but especially for the Indian contingent like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, we have been seen, and the questions of mankind, questions of the cultural diversity, and questions of the historical values and the spirituality. So then we have been seen, and our peoples, especially our indigenous peoples, have been relevant to these uh, characters and to these issues. So there have been lots of probability and to retrieve their educational strides for the indigenous peoples as well, which is our issues of this to these topics relevant to these topics. So I'm also thanks to Mr. Kumar to uh, raise these important issues about this regarding this indigenous peoples and decolonization systems. Some of the time we have been the controversial systems with the indigenous peoples and the decolonization systems, but morality and the main theme and focus was very much close to the retrieve of the indigenous people's knowledge and the decolonization systems, because we are all nations, all community try to uh, reverse and try to develop and enrich themselves for their own community, for their own family, for their own tribe as well. So this is the most common scenario of our for our Asian people, for especially for Indian and Bangladesh uh, circumstances as well.
So we have reached almost an hour, and it seems like it's been a minute. But research tells us that we should probably not go on much longer because people may not care so much.
Yes.
I want to leave them caring deeply about this topic. And so I'll ask you, what's next, Dr. Kumar? What should we do together to continue this process?
Well, Dr. Jessica, first of all, even today, I feel that the word needs to be uprised time and again because we have very short memory span time. And as human race is getting more and more digital, the attention span is also reducing to a larger extent. So this particular topic needs to be impressed upon people time and again because still I see a lot of misery in the world. Still I see there's a lot of turbulence. There's a lot of problems. There are still a lot of issues that needs to be resolved, and we have to look at things in a more holistic manner. These are all big sounding words, but why we have to see them at a from a eagle's eye view is because ultimately we are all one human race. Most of the time what I've seen is that even as nations we come together when there is an external aggression. Is there a possibility that the global community sees themselves as one nation when there will be some people from Mars who will come and start attacking our planet? No, we don't have to wait for that kind of a scenario. Why can't we look at each other and see that how best we can help each other? Because there's no point having territorial differences, no point having expansionist attitudes.
No.
We should be looking more towards coexistence in harmony. So, coexistence, if it is going to be the buzzword or the key word, I think we have to be tolerant to each other, and at the same time, we have to respect other person's point of view. Somehow, over a period of time, what I've seen is that people are guided by certain forces in the community who are more intolerant to the other points of view, and that leads to more friction and polluting the minds. And ultimately, I being a leadership coach, I do understand that if you want to destroy somebody, you should not do anything, just target his mind. And if you want to raise somebody, again, you don't have to do anything, just target his mind. Mind is the most powerful thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it is being used for almost all purposes which are contradictory to the concept of human evolution. So we must be striving towards this kind of a thing. And I think you should make it a point to visit, be our guest,
Yes.
enjoy the Indian hospitality. And while you are here, you should visit Dr. Huck and see the beautiful work that he's doing. And you would be surprised to see the kind of lovable, affable people that you will come across. And most important is that most of our perspectives they change when we see things in person. Like
Yes.
we were very happy to see each other. So what if we are on a digital platform?
Yeah. We will sometime soon. Maybe, hopefully, 2021 will let us get together. I'll say that I have read the Bhagavad Gita, although in English, not Sanskrit. And I am a big fan of yoga. I practice yoga every day, and I read a lot of the Upanishads, and so I have great respect for the philosophy that comes from the deep history. And there's a lot there that the world should be made aware of.
Yes. And thank you.
Yes, so I'll come there, and I'd love to get my yoga certificate. So if you can find me the best place to get certified to be a yoga, it's
Absolutely, absolutely.
wonderful. Okay, so I'll look for concluding remarks from Dr. Hoque.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thanks to Mr. Dr. Kumar, and because he already invited to us to visit the India to take the hospitality. I'm also visiting. Firstly, I would like to say that we have a famous word for that for Bangladeshi peoples that we are the very much hospitality as well. So Dr. Jessica and Dr. Kumar also welcome in Bangladesh as my guest, and you can take the you can watch the scenery beauty of the Bangladesh as well. Actually, we are uh, decolonization, colonization, and human rights. Three words is relevant here. So I would like to just want to conclude it. to touch these 3 points because I don't know, and I'm not sure, and I don't know ever or never when decolonization will be satisfied, because new colonization is knocking the behind. In the moment, in these situations, we cannot say that decolonizations will be established or decolonization will be satisfied. But we have to do what we have a duty towards our nations, towards our people, towards the world. Love, respect, and cooperation is very much important to uh, build our nation, to build the new world. So if we are love each other, if we respect each other, and if we cooperate, then we can hope anything doing good things for our globe and for our nations, for our people. So this is it can be motto for the 2021 as a love, respect, and cooperation. It can be motto for the 2021, and then I believe we can conquer the world. We can overcome this war, child environment pollution, killing, and child violence, child labor, violence, rape, and etc. etc. Then we can see the dream, the peaceful world as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Jessica and Mr. Kumar as well. And this is the wonderful platform to share our experience, share our views for the peaceful world as well. Thank you so much.
I thank you both for taking time at late in your evening to take time from your very busy lives to be with me today. And I think it's a very good example of co-rising. We don't need an enemy for us all to unite. We
Right.
can all unite and help each other. So let's hope that we all meet again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.